Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to do lesson 24 for wit and wisdom. So I'm going to use the screen behind me for the PowerPoint today, okay? So if you look up here, we've got some verbs up here. We've got exclaimed, wailed, grumbled, gasped, and screamed, okay? What type of action do these verbs describe? Do we know? What's actually how a character is speaking. How a character is speaking. These words give the reader clues of how the character is feeling. All right, I'll move that back. So let's look at these two sentences and let's think about how they're feeling after each sentence. So the first one, at last a daughter was born. Good fortune, the old man exclaimed. So how are they feeling on that one? Really excited, right? Happy? Yes. Okay. The next one, too cold, she grumbled. The fire's gone out. How was that one? She's kind of mean, like, right? She's unhappy. So these verbs give us clues to how the characters are feeling by describing the way they're talking, okay? Now, these words down here below can give clues to a character's traits. And we have the words scolded, ordered, demanded, and threatened. Now, these words here describe Moni's actions. Now, scolded right here means to yell at someone for doing something wrong. And demanded, that's right here, demanded to order or to tell someone to do something. Based on these actions, what can you infer about Omni's character traits? Scolded, ordered, demanded, and threatened. What could you learn from that? We can describe Moni as being mean or demanding. So we just inferred how she was feeling for a character trait. So next, we're going to take a closer look at Pear Blossom's actions. So our focus question, why do people admire Adelita and Pear Blossom? Our content framing question is, what does a deeper exploration of the characters reveal in the Korean Cinderella? So by examining Pear Blossom's actions, what will we be able to reveal about her character? Well, we are going to learn about how her actions show us her character traits. So let's look at 24A. You've got a copy of this, and it looks like this. I'm going to share my screen. Don't want that one, so let's hide that. I've got a lot up here, my friends. So 24A, this is the action cards right here. All right, and it says cut the action cards, use actions to link up with other students with similar actions. And it's got Pear Blossom cooks and cleans all day. Pear Blossom tells the truth about the frog that helps her. Pear Blossom packs food and sews clothes for her stepmom and stepsisters. And Pear Blossom tells the truth about the sparrows who help her. All right, so what trait can we infer from both actions to describe Pear Blossom's characters? Well, if you look at these cards, you know that Pear Blossom cooks and cleans for the whole house and prepares food. So she's really hardworking, isn't she? And when Pear Blossom tells her stepmother who helped her with her task, she is honest. So she's telling the truth. look at page 22 here in the book. All right, on page 22, I'm going to read it. Let me stop sharing, that way you can see me up close again. All right, so we're looking at the bottom here. What trait can you infer from the actions to describe Pear Blossom's character? So on page 22, it says, "Pigling may go," said Amoni in a voice as sweet as barley sugar. After she weeds the rice paddies, she handed Pear Blossom a basket of wilted turnip tops. "Here is Pigling's picnic." "I am most grateful, honorable mother," said Pear Blossom. When she reached the fields, Pear Blossom dropped the basket in dismay. Rice rippled before her like a great green lake. Weeding it would take weeks. Who could do such a task, she asked. Suddenly, a whirlwind twisted through the fields and a huge black ox reared up from the cloud of dust. "Doo," it bellowed, tossing its great horns. The ox began to munch the weeds, moving through the rows of rice faster than the wind itself. Each mouthful brought it closer to Pear Blossom. Even though she hid her face in her hands, she heard the crunch of its teeth and felt the beast's warm breath on her neck. So, what trait can we infer from that action? Well, she says she is most grateful, honorable mother. So when her stepmother says that she can go to the festival if she weeds the rice paddies, that tells me that Pear Blossom is grateful. All right. Oh, my nose is itching. And then if we look at page 25, it says, "At last she dared to peek between her fingers. Both ox and weeds were gone. Hoofprints big as cartwheels packed the field, yet not a single blade of rice was trampled. And when Pear Blossom looked in her basket, she found fruit and honey candy instead of turnips. She bowed, cupped her hands, and called 1,000 thanks." So what can we infer there about her action? Well, when Pear Blossom bows to the ox and says 1,000 thanks, this tells me she's thankful. All right, so let's look at her actions and traits. Well, we just did 22, 25. So let's look at those. Let's write those up there. We'll go ahead. We're going to start at the bottom and work up since we've already done those. So on page 22, she is grateful to stepmom. Okay, and we said with her being grateful, that made her grateful. That would be the trait. Okay, then on 25, it says, she says thanks to the oxen. To the ox, so that tells me she is thankful. So that's another trait she has. Okay, so now let's go back and look at page 8 in our story. Whoa, about to lose my book. All right, page 8. Amoni found fault as soon as she stepped into the kitchen. "Too cold," she grumbled. "The fire's gone out. Fetch wood, Pear Blossom. Be quick." Pear Blossom gathered sticks and fed the stove, and the lid on the kettle danced. "Too hot," her stepmother scolded then. "The noodles are scorching. Get water, Pear Blossom. Be." Both Amoni and Peony were jealous of Pear Blossom, and the harder she worked, the happier they were. Each day, Pear Blossom was up before high, the sun, and she cooked and cleaned until midnight with only the crickets for company. So what were her actions there? She cooks and cleans all day, right? So what trait would that be? She's hardworking. Okay, let's look at page 21 now. On 21, it says, Pear Blossom had food to fix nevertheless. The village was having a festival and she had to pack picnic hampers of dried fish and pickled cabbage for her stepmother. She also sewed a dress of pink silk for her stepsister. When festival day came, Peony mocked Pear Blossom, calling her dirty piglet, stay at home. So on this page, what did she do? What was her action? She packed food and made a dress, didn't she? So she packed food and made a dress. So that also tells me she's hardworking. So both of these tell me that. All right. So let's look at page 15 and 16 first. So those two are right side by side. So 15 and 16 say, as you wish, agreed Pear Blossom. For frog or goblin, it was best to do its bidding. She hurried to the well and drew a jug full of water. When she poured it into the jar, not a drop leaked out. When Amoni and Peony returned, they found Pear Blossom resting beside the jar. So Amoni drilled, off to market, little pig. But Amoni, the jar is full, Pear Blossom protested. A frog helped me. Trickery, snapped her stepmother, but she muttered to Peony, a magic frog, look inside that jar. Peony hung over the rim, but saw only her own scowling face. All of a sudden, the jar tipped. A flood of water soaked Peony from head to toe. Piglings to blame, she howled. Someday, little pig will get what she deserves, Amoni declared. She made Pear Blossom crawl through the puddles, licking up the water. So, what can we state there about her action? She tells the truth about what happens, right? Tells the truth. Okay. And so what could we say her trait is there? She's truthful or honest. All right, so let's the last page, page 34. She was peeling the last orange when Ammonia came upon her. Little pig, screamed her stepmother, what are you doing here? I am here because a great black ox ate all the weeds in the rice paddies, said Pear Blossom, the same ox that gave me this orange. Black ox indeed, Ammonia snorted. Oxen are brown. You stole that fruit. She was interrupted by the magic's bearers. Hear this, they shouted as they elbowed the palanquin through the crowd. We seek the girl with one shoe. It's Pigling, Peony, her sister. She's lost her shoe. The bearers put the chair down beside Pear Blossom, and the nobleman held up the straw sandal. The magistrate has come to arrest you for stealing, Ammonia shook Pear Blossom. Now you'll get what you deserve. So think about the action there. What is she doing? She's still telling the truth about what happens, right? Yep. She's truthful and honest. So what we can say is she's hardworking, she's truthful and honest, she's grateful and thankful. Those are her traits. All right, so let's erase this. All right. So it says we are to look at our assessment 24A. All right, so 24A, so I am going to share my screen so we can look at 24A. All right, so 24A. So today, we're going to begin planning an opinion paragraph to answer, all right? The questions, well, before we get to the question, you're going to include an introduction because we've been talking about an introduction. You're going to do the introduction, your opinion statement, a reason to support your opinion statement, and a conclusion for your opinion paragraph. So you're going to have 4 sentences. Okay. All right. So let's look at 24 focus question today. Now today, remember, we are just planning. We are not writing it out to turn in for a grade. Okay. You will write it on your evidence organizer, but you will not turn it in for a grade to me today. So this says, what do you most admire about Adelita or Pear Blossom? That's the question. So you can choose either Adelita or Pear Blossom. It says, first select which character to write about after reading the evidence on the Adelita and Pear Blossom traits charts. Next, you're going to choose a trait you most admire about Adelita or Pear Blossom. Then you're going to write an opinion paragraph telling what you most admire about Adelita or Pear Blossom. And you've got to support your opinion by using evidence from one of the following texts, either Adelita or the Korean Cinderella. All right, so you get to pick which character you're going to write about, either Adelita or Pear Blossom. You're going to write an introduction, and then you're going to pick an opinion statement to write, a reason, and a conclusion. So if we go back and look at our traits, actually, our traits, I'm going to stop sharing a second so you guys can see me. So if we talk about our traits, think about what we just talked about with Pear Blossom. Pear Blossom's trait, she's hardworking, she's honest, and she's grateful. So those are her 3 traits. Adelita's traits, remember, she's understanding, she's generous and kind, she's hardworking, and she's forgiving. So you need to pick those to help you fill in your task evidence organizer. So now I'm going to go back and share my screen again, and I'm going to show you the evidence organizer that you're going to use to create this. So this is the evidence organizer, all right? It says circle the character's name. So you're going to circle one of the names, Adelita or Pear Blossom, and you're going to pick an introduction. So think about an introduction. How would you write an introduction to that? Could you say, I think Adelita is hardworking? Then you're going to come down and do an opinion statement and restate, Adelita is hardworking. And then you've got to give your reason why you think she's hardworking, and then you've got to do your opinion. This is why I think Adelita is hardworking. Okay? That is for you to hold on to, because we're going to use this later on. Well, tomorrow's lesson, to write this, okay? So today, you'll just turn it in to me, basically, but it will not be graded. So let's stop sharing here. All right. So that's your job for one of these. Let me get my screen fixed again. So Adelita's traits is understanding, she's generous, kind, or helpful, she's hardworking and forgiving. Okay, how is she understanding? Well, if we go back and look at those pages, she's understanding because the stepmom favors her daughter. So here, stepmom favors daughter. Over here, she's generous, kind, and helpful. What does she do to show that generous, kind, and helpful? She helps Esperanza cook. Also offers for Esperanza to stay with her and share her food. Okay, she's hardworking. Why is she hardworking? Because she's always cooking and cleaning, isn't she? She's always cooking and cleaning. And then how is she forgiving? She invites her stepmom and stepsister to the wedding, doesn't she? Okay, so the traits we infer, she's understanding, she's generous and kind or helpful, she's hardworking and forgiving. Now, you could use this to help you write that paper, okay? Or you could use the one from earlier where we talked about pear blossoms. So pick one of those to look at and find what you want to write about, okay? So we've read our traits. So what trait do you most admire about Adelita or Pear Blossom? What trait would you admire? Would you admire because Adelita's caring? She is. She cares about Esperanza, doesn't she? She loves her. It's like her own family. And then what about Pear Blossom? She's really hardworking, isn't she? Even though her stepmom just keeps giving her harder and harder work and threatening to take her and sell her off, right? She still continues to work. So she's hardworking. All right. So you're going to give all your reasoning on 24B. So our essential question is, why do people around the world admire Cinderella? Our content framing, what does a deeper exploration of the characters reveal in the Korean Cinderella? So what's one thing or trait you admire about Pear Blossom and one thing they do not admire about Amoni? Ooh, think about that. Well, let's see here. What do you admire about Pear Blossom? Maybe that Pear Blossom is kind, right? But then one thing I don't admire about Amoni, she's really mean, isn't she? She's not very nice. So let's fluency check in. So I'm going to go back and share my screen with you. Let's go over here to our fluency on my mouse. All right. We've got narrator, Amoni, and Pear Blossom. Narrator. Amoni found fault as soon as he stepped into the kitchen. Too cold. The fire's gone out. Fetch wood, Pear Blossom. Be quick. Pear Blossom gathered sticks and fed the stove until the lid on the kettle danced from steam. Too hot. The noodles are scorching. Get water, Pear Blossom. Be quick. Both Amoni and Peony was a Pear Blossom, and the harder she worked, the happier they were. Each day, Pear Blossom was up before the sun. She cooked and cleaned until midnight with only the crickets for company. Okay, let's look at the next one. Amoni found fault as soon as she stepped into the kitchen. Too cold. The fire's gone out. Fetch wood, Pear Blossom. Be quick. Pear Blossom gathered sticks and fed the stove until the lid on the kettle danced from steam. Too hot. The noodles are scorching. Get water, Pear Blossom. Be quick. Both Amoni and Peony were jealous of Pear Blossom, and the harder she worked, the happier they were. Each day, Pear Blossom was up before the sun. She cooked and cleaned at midnight with only the crickets for company. But nothing could hide Pear Blossom's beauty. At night, Amoni lay sleepless, searching for an excuse to get rid of her stepdaughter. Wow, that's sad, isn't it? All right, so let's look back up here. So, what can you do to check the spelling of words? What can we do to check a spelling of words? Well, we can use the text, the book, to help us spell words correctly. The craft question is, how can I use resources to help me spell words? So look at these sentences here. Both the tree and the child grew lovelier with each passing season. Who will tend Pear Blossom now? Now, do those sentences look correct to you? What do you think's wrong with them? Well, if you look at that first sentence, tree isn't spelled correctly, is it? No, it's not. And if I go down to the next sentence, who will tend Pear Blossom? Tend is not spelled correctly. So tree and tend are the misspelled words, and it makes it hard to read and understand the author's message if the words are not spelled correctly. So if I go back and look on page 5 of the text, it says, let's see here, I'm looking for the tree and that's the right one. Both the tree and the child grew lovelier with each passing season. Okay, so if I look on this page right here, I see the word tree right there. And how is tree spelled? T-R-E-E. So I know that if I come up here, I can circle that, and I'm going to write tree the correct way above it. But I'm going to circle tend also because I need to find that also. It says, Iago, wailed the old man, who will tend Pear Blossom now? So if I look here, the word tend is right there above my, okay? And how is it spelled? T-E-N-D. And it's spelled T-I-N-D up here. So we need to change that vowel. So now we have tree and tend written correctly. So we can use the text as a helpful resource when we're writing our own sentences to make sure all the words are spelled correctly. Now, we've corrected the words, and now they look and sound correct, don't they? Both the tree and the child grew lovelier with each passing season. Who will tend to pear blossom now? So those are corrected. So let's look at these next sentences. Rice covered the ground like sand beside the sea. The next morning, Amoni scattered a hugged sack of rice around the courtyard. Do those sentences look and sound correct? No, they don't, do they? So what do we do to fix these? We go back and look in the text, don't we? So I'm going to go back to page 19, and I'm going to look for these words. So let me see if I can find this sentence. I'm looking, friends. Here we go. The next morning, Amoni scattered a huge sack of rice around the courtyard. So on this sentence, the next morning, Amoni scattered a hug sack of rice. So hug should be huge, right? So I'm going to circle hug, and I'm going to fix it to where it says huge. And if I look here in my story, I'm going to show you. Huge is spelled right there, H-U-G-E. So I'm going to correct hug as huge, H-U-G-E. But if you keep going, sack of brick around, so it's supposed to be sack of rice. I'm going to circle that. And it says right here, rice covered the ground. That's not it. Yeah, that's it. Rice covered the ground like sand beside the sea. So if we look around the next sentence, the word up there, like, is not spelled correctly, and sea. So I'm going to circle those two, and I'm going to find like in mine. So if I come back and look at this sentence, rice covered the ground like sand beside the sea. So look right there. There's like. What do we need to do to like? We need to add an E. So I'm going to come up here and write like with L-I-E. Well, using that same sentence, we're going to find the word sea. Okay, there's sea. How is it spelled? S-E-A. So we're going to write it as S-E-A. So now our two sentences should make sense. Rice covered the ground like sand beside the sea. The next morning, Amoni scattered a huge sack of rice around the courtyard. So did we use our text to help us fix these sentences? We did. So we know that we can use that resource to help us check the spelling of words. And using the text as a resource to check these words can help you in your writing also. All right. So friends, that is the end of our lesson today. And I will see you back here tomorrow. All right, my friends. Bye, guys.